Well, welcome to Action Reloaded, Neil. It's amazing to have you here,
It's a pleasure to be here.
and congratulations on the release of the Blu-ray and 4K version of Dog Soldiers.
Um, yeah, I mean, I've got finally got my copy as well. Um, it's like I kept on seeing everybody was getting their copies and I couldn't see it yet, but I finally got my copy. And yeah, I'm really, really proud of it. I mean, it's the quality and what they've done with it is just exceptional. It's the one we've been waiting for. We had to wait a while to get it, but it's the one that everybody should we've been waiting for, you know.
You're right there. Just like yourself, I got my copy a couple of days ago, and it's amazing. The amount of special features on there is unreal compared to the standard DVD disc you got.
I know it's missing a couple of little things that were on the original DVD that Pathé released. A different commentary and some I think some behind the scenes footage or something like that maybe. But or an original kind of making of with the cast. But that's it. I mean, everything else is like there's tons of new stuff on there, amazing new interview and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I'm really, really happy with it. And the book as well. Like, yeah, it's not just the extras on the thing. You got the book with the package as well, which has got all these essays and things in it. It's fantastic. So well done. I mean, it really is like a collector's item, which I think, the whole Blu-ray market now is so much more um, aimed toward collectors because people like us who are kind of keeping physical media alive. You know.
Yeah, I can't get my head around having everything backed up on like Google Movies and all that. I love to have a physical copy in my hand.
I agree. I agree. It's just because those other things just aren't so reliable, at the end of the day. And I kept on reading something recently about how, all the movies that you bought, like on iMovie or something like that, like technically you don't actually own them, having bought them, you don't own them. So they can like, prevent you from playing them or whatever it is. I don't know what they can do, but like just when stuff like that is going on, at least with a Blu-ray or DVD, it's on your shelf, it's there, you can just watch it whenever you want it and it's yours.
Exactly. Like recently, slightly off topic, if anyone's wondering here where I'm going with this, but I was watching a TV series on Amazon Prime, and then I went away, I was busy, came back to it 2 weeks later, and I couldn't pick up where I wanted to leave off because it was like buy the rest of the series or rent the episode for 2.49.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not hasn't moved on that much more from like the days of Blockbuster Video that you have to return it within a couple of days. It's like you rent something, and if you miss that deadline, you got to rent it all over again just to pick up from the last whatever thing that you've missed. So yeah, very frustrating.
Well, back to Dog Soldiers. The most important question I think people would ask is at the time of making, did you know the movie would be a cult success?
I had no idea that it was going to go on to be quite the cult success it has. I certainly didn't think like 20 years later people would be, buying a beautiful new Blu-ray of it or anything like that back then, or I'd still be getting interviewed about it back then. I knew I was like going to be hitting certain fan base with it, a certain fan base with it because I was part of that fan base, and ultimately I made this film for myself as much as anybody because it was the kind of movie that I wanted to see, and nobody else was making it back then. So I was like, so I knew that at least if there's anybody else out there like me that there will be a following for it. But I didn't quite know how much of a following it was going to get, and that following would resonate for it's now kind of become a generational thing. It's like
Yeah.
now dads are passing it on to their sons and things like that. It's like that's great, that's amazing. Um,
And werewolves is an interesting choice to go for. Did Were you always into like werewolf movies and the Wolfman?
Werewolves were always the of the classic monsters. The werewolves were always the one that just clicked with me the most. That I was interested in, not just visually, but the visual side of it, of the half man, half wolf. I thought was just the half man, half creature, or the wolf walking on hind legs kind of thing. I just found out that image much more terrifying than Dracula in his cape, or the mummy with his bandages and all that kind of stuff. So that was the one that clicked with me, but there's a reason that there's not so many werewolf movies out there, is because they're the most difficult to make. Because werewolves are the most difficult to create. a half decent
Yeah,
werewolf. So, that takes money and it takes effort and it takes imagination to actually create werewolves, which is why they're not done so much, and even nowadays with CGI to help, they're still not done a lot because pulling off a convincing CGI werewolf is just as difficult as a convincing practical werewolf. So, we've seen bad examples of them plenty, but yeah. So and everybody said, for my first feature, it was wildly ambitious. Should have tackled something much simpler and smaller, but it was like, no, this is what I want to do. I want to do werewolves and soldiers and action and explosions and things like that, and just make it ambitious. Because if you're not going to be ambitious, what the hell? Why bother?
exactly. Couldn't agree more. And werewolves, as you said, it's either a hit or miss. How long was it into production you saw the final werewolf costume? Because carry on, what were you going to say?
No, I mean, just say, I'm just trying to remember now because we were developing the script for quite some time, and during that time, it was like 6 years, we were developing the script to get it made or raising the money to get the script made. And quite early on, we had some very rough concepts for the werewolves, and then that got more and more developed, and then ultimately having Bob Keane and his team and a guy called Dave Bunnywell who kind of essentially designed the final version of the werewolf, and he built this maquette, this beautiful 3D maquette thing of it, and it was that combined with the script that caught the eye of David E. Allen, who ultimately ended up financing the movie. So we had a good idea of what the werewolves were meant to look like, but until we actually got into production and Bob started putting the pieces together, and we hired these three dancers, really tall, lithe looking, agile dancers, because I wanted them to be kind of graceful in their movements. And we put them on stilts. And so, they were like over 7 feet tall. Maybe like nearly 8 feet tall or whatever when we were at full height. With the stilts, with the dancers, and then with the head on top. I mean, they were huge. But I can't remember exactly when it was when we finally saw them, in costume for the first time. I mean, it was obviously we were quite a way down the line and committed at that point. So, but thankfully they looked amazing. They didn't handle so well because the whoever was wearing them, the only thing they could see out of was like a tiny little hole in the mouth that they looked through. And so it gave them very, very limited vision. And when you put them on stilts as well, I mean, they really, really struggled. But quite more often than not, we ditched the stilts and just filmed them sort of close-ups and things like that.
Did you have to do loads of digging into werewolf lore, or were you already a big aficionado that you could just jump straight in?
Well, when I was writing the script, I did a lot of research. The main book I referred to is it's called The Book of Werewolves by the Reverend Sabine Baring Gould, which is a great name. And that's kind of like the first significant text on werewolves. And it's quite a well-known book. And so I read that, and I got hold of any other research I could about werewolves. But I knew roughly what I wanted. I mean, ultimately, they say the same kind of thing of that, it's the man beast hybrid, and take that as you will as to quite how much man and how much beast. But I knew that I wanted something that looked like a wolf but walked on hind legs like a human. I think that humanizing of them makes them more terrifying to me.
You previously mentioned as well that the script had been in works for about 6 years. Was there many changes made to the script over them 6 years?
Nothing dramatic. It really was refining. I think there might have been some more slightly elaborate sequences in earlier drafts that we might have had to sort of tone down a little bit. I honestly can't remember. I mean, we did 18 drafts by the time we filmed it, and all that really did was just make it better, because it was mainly refining the story, refining the characters, all the setups and payoffs that you put in these scripts and stuff like that. I mean, it really gave me the chance to work hard at making it the best it could possibly be. But I can't think of any like really dramatic stuff that didn't end up making it into the film.
Another big rumor as well about the movie was that lead actor Kevin McKidd injured himself during filming, and then you replaced him with Statham. Is there any truth in that?
No, it's actually it's the other way around. That about God, it must have been about 2 years before we actually finally made the film. We attached Jason Statham to play that role. And he'd literally just done Lock Stock about that time. And I was like, I saw Lock Stock and I was like, that guy has got something about him. That guy's going to be a star, and we should get him in our movie. So like he agreed and signed. You know, he was kind of there. He was on board to play Cooper, and then the money didn't come through, and things got delayed, and he stuck with it for a while. But ultimately, he ended up getting an offer in from Ghosts of Mars, I think it was, for John Carpenter. And he came to me and he said, "Look, I've got this offer, and is your film going to happen anytime soon?" I said, "Well, I've got, there's no guarantees, but frankly, if you've got a chance to go and work with John Carpenter, you should totally do it." So he went off and did that, and the rest is history. And so we didn't get him in Dog Soldiers, but we got Kevin McKidd instead, which frankly was a better result, I think, for the movie. I'd still love to work with Statham one day, but on something different, and then who knows?
Do you still think the movie would have the same cult status if Statham had been in the lead role?
It's really impossible to say. I mean, it's would he have been a team player? Who knows? The encounters that I've had with him over the years, he's been gracious and friendly and lovely, and he's a really, really down to earth bloke. So I've got all the time in the world for Statham. I couldn't tell you whether it'd be the same film or not. What I can tell you is what did happen, and with Kev and Sean and that lot, those guys were thick as thieves. The whole gang, they would have fought and died for each other by the end of that movie. They were so tight. As a group, they really, really solidified as a bunch of mates. So that worked out well for us, and it didn't work out too badly for Statham either. So because the other one is Simon Pegg as well, because we'd offered Simon Pegg the role of Spoon first, because again I'd seen him on TV on Bill Bailey and stuff like that, and thought that guy's got something. He's going to be a star. I'm quite good at spotting these stars. It would seem just that they don't end up in my movies. So we offered him Spoon, and he came and met with us, and it was lovely to meet him. And he was very gracious and lovely. And he said, "Look, I'd love to, but I can't. I promised Edgar I'd do Shaun of the Dead as my first feature, and I'm going to stick by that. So thank you." And it was great. It's just I admire that kind of loyalty in this business. It's rare. So for him to do that was fantastic, and we got Shaun of the Dead out of it. And then again, we the audience are winners all round, because we got Darren Moffat as Spoon, who absolutely killed it. So and as far as I'm concerned, there's like there is no other person to be Spoon as Darren. It's like he became that role, or that role became him, one of the two. So I say it's a win all round for us, because we get Dog Soldiers with the cast that we got, and those other guys have gone on to make some amazing movies. So not bad.
And did you know while you're writing the script, were you like this Spoon character is going to be a hit amongst the fans?
It yeah, kind of. I mean, it became that he was a character that suddenly he was very familiar to me. He was like this northern lad who was just like, I always like associate Spoon as being a bit like a terrier. Is like, he's the kind of the smallest member of the platoon, but he's like he just is tough as nails. I knew people like that growing up in Newcastle who were like just up for fights, up for they just wouldn't take any shit from anybody. And I thought that Spoon. So he was a pleasure to write the Spoon character. It kind of came quite easily to me to write that character. The ballsy little Brit terrier, and I think Darren really kind of got into that kind of character as well, and just brought that magic to it. So I had some inkling, and as soon as I wrote the hand-to-hand fight with him and the werewolf, and it was actually like it was always going to be a fight, but it was Darren, because he's a boxer, who brought in the kind of boxing moves to it, which I just thought worked absolutely perfectly. That he could like duck and dodge and dive this thing was like fantastic, and we didn't kind of overdo it. There's just enough in there, and it worked a treat.
Is it true as well that you changed Spoon's death scene and made it more off camera than on camera?
Well, I mean, it was always, we didn't adjust anything. I cut out a bit that showed him. He was kind of pinned up against the wall, and his bottom half had been kind of ripped away, and all his innards were falling out, onto the floor, and he was being held up against the wall. It was pretty grim, but I honestly felt that he was such a loved character. It was best for him to go out on that last line, and not see him after that.
Yeah.
Uh, was perfect. So, and I think that was the right choice. It missed a gory beat, but it was the right choice. But yeah, actually, I missed the question before that. You asking about Kevin the Kid being injured. Yes, Kevin either cracked or indeed broke. I think he just cracked a couple of ribs when he was doing the training for filming, because this ex-French Foreign Legion soldier that we had as an advisor on the film, he took the boys out into the woods and had them running some drills and doing all this kind of stuff. And I think Kev took a dive and landed on a rock or something and cracked two ribs. And this was like a day before the start of filming, and he kept it quiet because he was scared that we'd replace him. So he finally told us at the end of the first week, and we were like, "Yeah, I think you better go and see a doctor now." So it's like, now you've grimaced all the way through the first week and made it. It's like, time to see a doctor. So he
And
was fine. He was fine.
Dog Soldiers features so many memorable moments. What was your favorite scene to film?
Um, I don't know. There's so many. Like I love filming all the action stuff. Every time we got to blow something up was great. I literally was like just grinning from ear to ear when we were blowing up the car and the barn. I'd not really done anything like that before, so they were quite big explosions and all practical. So that was fun. I really enjoyed filming the sequence at the end where it's just Kevin and Sean in the kitchen, and it was literally just those two and me and the camera guy in the room with them, and we didn't quite know how it was going to play. No, they were just running with it, and the energy in that room was really intense. Because it was also like, it was like Sean's last day, and you could kind of feel it in the air. And because we filmed the majority of it in story order, so because we had to, because we were smashing up the cottage that we're in, we were just destroying it room by room by room. So we couldn't go back and rejig something when we'd blown this room apart. So we had to film it all in story order, which was great for us. But it did mean that, like, by the time we got to an actor's last scene, it was like quite emotional. So certainly that day with Kevin and Sean in the kitchen was incredible.
And the number one question you probably always asked, sequel talk. So, where would you have gone with the story? And what direction would you go now?
There was a few options knocking around at the time. One was, and I've discussed this before. I know the rumors out there that I had this idea of doing a trilogy with Cooper, uh, and kind of battling a different kind of supernatural element each time. So I think there was going to be either what was it going to be? I think the second one was going to be vampires or zombies or something like that, and then there was like it's going to be something else after that. That was one thought. And then another thought was literally to carry on the story where literally where it leaves off. And that took it in a totally different direction, but was much more of a kind of direct sequel, also involving werewolves, to continue the whole werewolf trend. And if I was going to be able to do a sequel, which I'm still, fingers crossed, touch wood, hoping to, it's that direction that I'm leaning in to essentially kind of pick up the story 20 years later and see where Cooper's at and what's going on in the world.
And do you still speak to the cast of Dog Soldiers?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I was lucky enough, Sean came along for the screening at Fright Fest, which was great, and we got to watch it together for the first time in 20 years, and so that was great. I still keep in touch with Kev. He's full time on Grey's Anatomy most of the time, so I've tried to get Kev in other movies since then, but he's always been working on his TV show, so it's never quite worked out. But I'm longing to work with Kev again. And I have just worked with Sean again, and we'll work with him in a heartbeat anytime of the week, really. The same goes for the others. It's like I'm in touch with Darren a little bit. I'm going to go see him at this signing we're doing in October. and I mean the others. Some of them have actually just vanished off the face of the earth. Like literally, we tried to find. We tried to find them for the signing. We tried to find them for the Bluray to be interviewed. Emma's now like she's raising a family, and she's not acting anymore, so she's kind of sort of withdrawn from sort of public life, which is good for her. But some of them like Chris, like it just literally vanished. I don't know where he is or what he's doing. I haven't seen him. He's not on social media. You can't, agents can't track him down. So yeah, and Tom Lockyer as well. I can't find him anywhere. But Les is now living in Australia. And Liam, I'm still in touch with Liam, hoping to work with him again sometime soon. Yeah. So yeah, those that I could, I've kept in touch with for sure.
For sequel talks, I don't know if it has been done, but has anyone ever brought forward maybe continuing on in comic book form?
It's not been, or nobody's like approached me about it, and I wouldn't have the first clue about how you do it anyway. So I mean, I'd certainly be open to the possibility, but yeah, it could be kind of nice to sort of fill in the last 20 years in terms of the story in comic terms. There's quite a few things that I've got going that I'd love to do as like graphic novels, but I don't even know where you begin.
No, I wouldn't even know where to begin either. Just write the story and then
Maybe one of your listeners will know where to begin.
There's bound to be someone out there with a whole storyboard for either a graphic
Yeah,
novel, comic, or a movie. Do you ever
yeah.
get do you ever get
Fun.
fans
Be
pitch
fun.
movies to you?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes. Can you read the script, that kind of thing? Yeah, it happens every once in a while. Not much, but it happens.
So fingers crossed that we do get Dog Soldiers 2 in the near future and we don't get some half-baked remake.
No, for years I was like dreading the idea that there would be like an American remake or something like that, with kind of Bruce Willis in the John Pertwee role or something like that. Thankfully that didn't happen. So
Well, Neil, it was amazing to speak with you. Congratulations on the release of Dog Soldiers in 4K. And then fingers
thank you very
crossed we get
much.
to see Dog Soldiers 2 in 4K pretty soon.
Yes, that'd be awesome. Better get it written first.
Thanks for your time, Neil. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Bye.
man.